Morning, everybody. Today I'm going to show you how to do the shading around the eye for your portrait drawing lesson. So I've got kind of my basics in here. I've got my center of my face found, and I've divided the head into 5 equal sections. The space that is between the eyes should be equal to the size of the eye. This is what gives it a realistic proportion. If your eyes get too big, they start to look cartoon or manga. There's lots of different styles of cartooning, and that's totally fine if that's what you like to draw. I'd like to challenge you, though, to try to draw a realistic portrait, because knowledge of realistic drawing skills allows you then to abstract in a more personal way instead of just kind of copying a fan art or cartoonist style. Just gives you a little bit more options. So when you draw the iris on the eye shape is just an almond shape. A little bit pointy at the ends. There are a lot of different eye shapes that go with your genetics, your nationality. They're all beautiful. If you want to draw somebody of a specific nationality, then you can look up pictures. You don't want to get too much into stereotyping because everybody's unique based on their lineage, and we're all beautiful people, so it's kind of fun just to make it up as you go rather than trying to focus on making it look like something else. You can be more creative that way, so I encourage you just to kind of play and enjoy yourself. When you draw the iris of the eye, which is the colored part of your eye, you want to show that the eyelid is down over it. You're not going to see the entire circle unless your person's just freaking out and you can see the whites of their eyes all the way around, and that's not really necessary. So you want to kind of make half of a circle or 3/4 of a circle, maybe more. The iris does not usually disappear below the eyelid here unless you're squinting. You have a local color when you're working with black and white. So we're working with pencils. So if I color a light gray in the iris, then that's going to show that it's a lighter color eye, like a blue eye or hazel eye. If you color a darker value in there, then you're letting people know that it's a brown-eyed person. Okay, so you've got the pupil in the center. Now, a little bit of science for you. Your pupil expands and contracts based on how much light is in the area that you're in. So if you're drawing a person in a dark space, then their pupil might be bigger because it's going to be expanded out so that so that they can see. If you're drawing a person that's out in the bright sunlight, then their pupil is going to be really small. So just a little bit of science for you today. Usually there's a darker ring around the outside edge of the iris, and there are some irregularities. Our eye isn't just all one color of blue, so I use some hatching lines in here to go in. You can put a highlight in if you want to erase in a little highlight. You can add light reflecting off of surfaces or things like that. Your eyelid is actually, I do 2 lines for the eyelid because you've got something there for your eyelashes to grow out of. So 2 lines. And then your eyelashes grow up and away from your eye. So if you start out here, a lot of times I'll turn my notebook so that I can use the direction and go out and up. And as you get to the end of your line, lift your pencil up a little bit so that you can get a very fine line at the end of the eyelashes. You don't need thousands of eyelashes. Okay. On the bottom, there's a few less eyelashes. They're shorter and smaller. Okay. Then you have a tear duct on the inside edge of your eye that has a little bit of shadow. And then your eye is actually a sphere. Your eyeball is a sphere. So if you do a little bit of shading along this outside edge, you don't want to color your eye in gray. You can clean up from the division line here. But if you do a little bit there, that'll make it look a little bit more 3D. And the other thing I like to do is I like to go underneath the eyelash and darken this just a little bit for shadow cast there. Now everybody has an eyelid that comes down and forward over the eyeball when you blink, and so there's a crease there. Now that the shape of that crease is up to you. You can make it smooth, you can give it a little bit of a dip, it can have wrinkles in it, it's up to you. When you have your nose is as wide as the space between the eyes, and it is halfway between the eye line and the chin line, as we talked about in our last video. You have a line that goes, if you feel your eyebrow, if you run your finger over your eyebrow and gently underneath your eye, don't push too hard, you can feel the eye socket in your skull. And the bridge of the nose and the eyebrow follow that eye socket, okay? So you don't have a straight line going up connecting the outside edge of your nostril to your eyeball. It comes narrower in the center. So you have kind of an arc here. Now, if we were looking at the socket, this is what you're feeling underneath your eyebrow and below your eye, okay? The hair of your eyebrow usually starts directly above your eye, and if you make a diagonal line from the outside edge of the nose to the outside edge of your eye, usually grows from here to here. So you can use hatching lines that we learned in 6th grade for the hair. You can have bushy eyebrows, you can have plucked thin shaped eyebrows, whatever you'd like, but they're going to probably follow that curve. So you have kind of a curve that comes from here and around that you want to emphasize when you are doing your shading, okay? So value shading, your value scale that we learned a long time ago, 6th graders, starting dark and getting lighter and lighter and lighter, all the shades of gray in there, nice rich medium, okay? The reason we do this project in 7th grade usually is to advance our use of this skill. So as you're shading, you can always get darker, but it's hard to get it all the way back to white when you're shading pencil on drawing paper. So I encourage you to start light and then not be afraid to add contrast. Remember, contrast is that difference between dark and light. So the darker you get, the more contrast you get. As you're starting to shade around your eyes, there's going to be a shadow here because there's a crease here. Some people's have hooded eyes, so there's a lot of shadow above this line. Some people, the shading is below this line. So you just kind of have to work with what looks natural. I encourage you to use a mirror, especially right now because we're working at home. You guys have a mirror in your room or in your bathroom or something that you can grab and look at. But there's going to be some shading here that pushes this area back into space. And there's going to be highlights on your nose, down the center of your nose, on the tip of your nose, on each nostril, that create that illusion of 3D form. That's always our goal. So your shading is going to start here. Some people have a little bit of a crease under here. Some people even have a darker color of skin underneath here. And I want to warn you, the more shading that you do below the eyes, the tireder and the older your person's going to look. So a little bit goes a long way, just very lightly right here. Okay. So I need to erase some of these lines so that I don't have all this crisscrossing going on and we can see our shadows where we want them. Okay, there we go. So I can put a little bit of shading right in here. I can add a little bit of shading up here. You can always come back and add more contrast to that once we get the nose shaded.